This is Rachel Dworkin from the Chemung County Historical Society. Today is August 6th, 2020, and I'm here recording for the COVID Memory Project. Today I'm speaking with
Najeeb Rehman
and Munazza Rehman.
All right, thank you both very much. I understand you are both members of the Islamic Association of the Finger Lakes. Could you tell me a little bit about how the pandemic has affected your mosque?
Yeah, so this is very strange because our mosques are open throughout the day for 5 times prayers. So we go from early morning before sunrise until late night for prayers. Here we do normally lock up the mosque at nighttime after the last Isha prayers, and then we open up early before the morning, pre-dawn prayers. But in the rest of the Muslim world, actually, many of the mosques stay open, so they do not lock them up at nighttime. So from there, just locking up at nighttime was something very strange, for us, because we were not used to locking up the mosque. So that was one extreme, where you don't even lock up the mosque because somebody can stop in any time to pray. It's an open space. But here, in March, we had to actually shut down the mosque and totally lock it up for months. So that was very strange. I mean, for our prayers, for our worship, this was very, very strange. And then on top of that, not just our mosque, internationally, they had to close down even the Mecca, the pilgrimage, over there for the Hajj. They had to even, cut that short, only allow 10,000 from instead of 2-3 million people. So on a global scale, yes, this is a very strange time, but for us locally, it was very strange. I mean, we have tried not to miss our Friday congregational prayers, but over here it was months on end that we were not able to get to the mosque. So that was very, very strange feeling and different feeling that we had. And unfortunately, our Ramadan, the fasting one, happened to be from end of April till end of May. So that also, we were not able to, enjoy the normal rituals and celebrations. And, so we did definitely have very strange feelings. And, many of the community members definitely felt very sad. And some of them really wanted to say, let's open up, let's go back. But certainly the decision from the administration was to follow what the New York State, government would say.
Are you guys back open now?
Yes, but for unlimited capacity right now. So I was just going to say, so Najeeb talked about Ramadan, which is a time when we had the biggest, especially on weekend nights, there's the biggest get-togethers because we open our fast together. The whole community's there usually, normally. And this year we couldn't do that. Then at the end of Ramadan is Eid al-Fitr. It's a big celebration, and it starts off in the morning with a special prayer, and then we normally have a brunch, and then there's activities for kids, and there's a dinner at night. We couldn't do that. And just a few days ago was our second major holiday of the year, which happens when the Hajj in Saudi Arabia ends. And by that time, the mosque had opened, but it was for limited capacity. Not everyone could attend services at the same time. They had to hold multiple services so that few people at a time could attend. And we couldn't normally after the prayer, we would greet each other and, like I said, share food. So it's sort of really made community members feel very isolated from each other. Mm-hmm. We would be having, when the school year is going on, we also have Sunday school at the mosque. And so we weren't able to have that. So the kids weren't really able to get together and just have that friendship and that company the way they normally would, even though we did do virtual classes. So it's been a very, very different year.
And I would like to add, from adults' point of view, I think was, a strange feeling and a little bit of sadness that we were not able to do things that we normally would have done. Uh, but from those families, those who have young children, they have really, they really felt bad, and that their children are not able to connect and not able to celebrate as normally they would. And certainly children don't really understand, young kids don't really understand the gravity of the situation. And those families, have tried and pushed that let's, have some kind of get together, or, from children's perspective, so that they feel that they are connected. But there have been not much, I would say, support for that decision. I mean, even on this Eid day, they were planning that let's have at least some kind of, barbecue or something, where families can get together somewhere out in the park. But then again, that's where, the administration thought that we cannot really support that from organization point of view, because we don't want anybody getting sick, because especially when you're eating, you can't really have your mask on. So if you're sitting on a table, you are only a few feet across. You can't have 6 feet distance, even if you're in a park. So it's kind of, so I think they are feeling much more of the brunt of this, isolation from children's perspective, because they, the kids don't realize, and they want to still go around, run around, have friends. So adults have different challenges, and I think those families with young kids have, different challenges.
Do you guys have kids? How old are they?
So the youngest is 14. That's our daughter. Our two older sons, they're adults, they're married. So, they have their own things keeping them busy.
How did you and your family celebrate Ramadan this year, since you couldn't do it the way that you normally would?
So it was at home. It was a new experience, not doing it together with the community. However, there was a lot of virtual stuff going on, because in Ramadan, we have some extra prayers at night, but besides that, it is a month where we are, listening to maybe a lot more of Islamic lectures, where we're trying to increase our knowledge, and we're trying to increase the spirituality during that month. So there was a lot of stuff going online by organizations all over the US. So that helped compensate a bit. So individually, it was great, but like we said, that togetherness couldn't play a part this year.
So I would add to that. So my experience from Ramadan perspective was good in a way, although it was different. So normally, as she said, that we have this congregational prayer every night. Those are additional. They last about an hour and a half to 2 hours, where they recite one section of the Quran, and we stand behind and listen. And those are long. They do take about an hour and a half of recitation. So that normally would start, I would say, in summertime. These days would start around 10 o'clock and would last until 11:30 or midnight. So we couldn't really join in those prayers. So instead, what we kind of adapted to was, which I liked, was that, okay, we're going to sleep after our night prayers, wake up earlier than we would normally for the prayers, and do those extra prayers on our own early on. So we had to get up 3 o'clock in the morning and do those extra prayers on our own. They will not be that long. They'll be shorter.
And then we have a meal before we actually start the fast.
Yeah. So that part of the prayer, which is where you wake up at middle of the night, actually middle of the night, where you wake up after sleeping and pray, is considered to be very blessed and worship. So that I had not been doing it, because I would normally, if you sleep around midnight, then you have to wake up to eat around 4 o'clock, and then you have to go to prayers, and then you have to go to work. So you will find time during the daytime, then you're fasting. So there's not enough. So this time was different. So we were able to go to bed early because we were not going to the mosque to pray until midnight. So we would sleep around 10:30 or so, wake up at 3 o'clock, and do those extra, nightly, worship prayers, and then eat, and then take a nap for, an hour or two. So that definitely, at least put me on the track so I'm still continuing that habit. So I did pick up something. So the way I look at it, it was difficult time, strange times, but I think I did pick up a good habit that I want to pursue and continue with that now, going forward.
So a positive thing that did come out of this, because the school was closed, my daughter is going to be in 10th grade. So she was 9th grade at the time. So since she didn't have to go to school in the morning at those, that at a specific times, everything was online, she was able to participate more in the Ramadan worship. And she's always wanted to, but because of school, of course, she has to get a good night's sleep and everything. So I guess it turned out like better for her this time.
Okay. So shifting gears, talk a little bit about your professional lives. I understand you are both doctors. Is that correct?
Yes, but I'm retired.
Yeah, and I'm tired.
Well, I suppose if you're getting up at 3 a.m., yeah. So where is it that you practice?
So I'm a cardiologist. I work at Guthrie. So a couple of days I have to go to Sayre, and then 3 days a week, actually 2 days a week, I'm in Big Flats, and on Mondays I'm in, Bath office. So we kind of cover both east and west of Horseheads.
Okay, and how has COVID impacted your practice?
So so it has definitely affected in several ways. One is definitely that in the very early phase, from I would say almost all of April, we did not have hardly any patient coming into the office. So we went totally virtual, and that was a challenge. And many patients who were elderly or who are somewhat technically challenged were not able to follow the instructions, or they did not have the equipment to log on and install some programs like Zoom or something so they can have virtual. Or if they would have, they don't have internet. So there were those challenges that really were difficult to we would be able to talk to them over the phone, but then the phone thing is you cannot really bill for those services. So from a hospital point of view, was that we need to see the patients, not just talk to them over the phone. So that was a challenge. We had to kind of also stay home, not go to the office. We only have one physician, so that in case if there are those patients who have to be seen, there is only one a person. So very limited and minimal staff to be there, but otherwise everybody would be staying home and doing all the virtual consultation and virtual patient visits online. So that was a very different and new thing for us. We had not done it before, so we had to kind of learn and figure out how we're going to document all those visits. Normally we would have a patient comes in, the nurse checks the blood pressure, checks the pulse, if the EKG needs to be done. We couldn't do anything. It was just the patient on the screen and say, we don't know what the pressure is. And sometimes I would ask them, okay, fine. If you have a blood pressure machine, go ahead, take your blood pressure while I'm here, I'm waiting. So they will check their blood pressure. Then I will document in my note that the patient reported this blood pressure. So those are kind of things that we had to kind of, get up to speed how to do that. Other than that, certainly when the patient started to come back to the office, as things kind of, improved, the mask, we have to maintain certain distance. So we want to make sure that they wear masks and, cleaning between the patients. So those kind of routine was slightly different. Then certainly from the hospital perspective, because, or I would say from the employer's perspective, because they were, they were having the revenue deficit because services, patients were not coming in. So all elective surgeries were canceled, all elective cardiac procedures were canceled. So that definitely, was stressful from the employer's perspective. So they had kind of furloughed some staff, and we tried to, at least from our department, the physicians, we donated our, week's worth of vacation time, so that can be compensated for some of the staff. So instead of being furloughed, keep them afloat. So that helped keeping the staff, at least the morale, also up. Otherwise, everybody was concerned as to what's going to happen. Will they have a job or not have a job? So those kind of were the issues. All administration hours and all physicians and all actually providers, even the nurse practitioners, everybody took 10% pay cut for May, June, July, August. So those 4 or 5 months were, so there was kind of like, I think different things that we had to do to make sure that we keep up the morale for the staff, make sure we continue to be productive, and learn the challenges of, COVID. And on top of that, we were kind of scared. I mean, I had to come back home. Every time I'm in the hospital, I'll come home, change my scrubs up in my, in the mudroom, and, go straight, either take shower or, wash yourself. So those kind of things, did add up to a little bit of anxiety on her part, because, I'm coming back. And so my older son, actually, he's a resident at Guthrie, and 3 times, because he was training, so he has much more exposure. So 3 times he had to be quarantined because he came across, a patient who later on turned out to be positive. So, so those were the challenges that we had to kind of, deal with internally. And there was always a fear that I can bring the disease back home. And there was, an issue that, yes, you can be asymptomatic and still have the disease, and you can convey it to others. So that was the fear that, that she has to, deal with more, staying home. And then definitely, they have been stuck home. Our grocery shopping, everything has been mostly online, and I'll just go out to pick it up, and all those kind of, that's in a nutshell from the professional side.
So you talked a little bit about how it was impacting your home life. Do you want to expand on that for me?
So, like he said, it's just like whoever's coming in from the outside, and especially when someone's working in the hospital. So being that extra careful, that not to transmit any infections that they may have picked up. And then, yes, I have been stuck at home. And yes, I could start to get out more now. Things have opened up, but I still it still feels like, since it's raging all over the rest of the country, it doesn't feel like it would be very safe, even here, to let go of precautions. So, so socially, that there would be like once a week, some ladies would get together for like a Quran study group or something, or just socially, just a lunch or something. So haven't really seen my friends except once in a while on Zoom, so it's socially isolating like that. And I think my daughters felt it too, because it's not going into school. So not seeing their friends face to face, or not seeing their teachers face to face. I mean, everything's virtual, everything's online, which is all very well, but, I think we still miss that human contact. But that having been said, I actually don't mind the slower pace of life. So it's not like go, go, go. It's not like take my daughter here, take my daughter there, go grocery shopping, and it's at least for a time, I enjoyed like the relaxed pace of life. Now I'm getting a little impatient.
So your daughter is a rising sophomore, right?
Yes.
Yeah. How did the last half of her freshman year go for her? And what school does she attend?
She's at Horseheads High School.
Okay.
I think they did a good job, as well as good a job as they could on such short notice, because it was kind of really sudden. And they transferred everything to, remote and online. But I think the teachers did a really good job of, staying in touch with the students. So they would have, they had, it was recorded, it wasn't live classes. They would record a video, and then the students had to see it. But then there was always they could text. They had it on their Microsoft 365, whatever their class was using. So it was like they could contact the teacher anytime or email them. And the teachers would check in, and they would send us emails too about how things were going. So I guess it was a new experience for everybody. And they did fine, but I think my daughter would really like to actually get back to school, even though at this point, it doesn't seem like it would be safe to. For next year, they're offering a choice between either hybrid, meaning a couple of days in school and the rest from home, or they can do 100% remote. And at least even at this stage, I think we're going for the 100% remote, because that just seems like the safer thing to do. So I don't know how that will work out in terms of activities that are usually done together, like gym or, whatever, sports and clubs and, So I guess they're trying their best, but this has gone longer than everybody had expected.
Yes. So your son one of your adult sons lives in the area. Have you been in contact with him in person, or is it mostly, over the phone by Zoom?
So in the beginning, definitely we limited, contact, so that because he works at the hospital, I work at the hospital, so we'll try not to, visit so often. So it was more so just on the, FaceTime, or, that's how. But then definitely as the, things started to get better, and hospital, we didn't have too many, I think we haven't had any active COVID patients since June. So that was the time when we started to kind of at least visit. So socially we have been isolated from others, but he is big, in the family. He lives in Elmira, so we at least then kept that link, that at least we can visit him, he can visit us. We still takes a little bit of precautions, wash our hands, and when we go in, and he has a newborn, 7 months old daughter, so we try not to kiss her too much, and try to so that has been kind of, and especially challenging for him, because when he was quarantined 3 times, once he had to come into our basement because he had his in-laws were visiting, so he didn't want them to expose. So then he was living in our basement for 2 weeks. Until he was then cleared, and thank God.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Because that sounds like a story.
Yes, yeah. So what happened was that as a resident, as a trainee, you are there taking care of the patients, and you are in the hospital 7 days a week. And you are in the first line. Every time somebody would come in, you have to go examine the patient, take history, then present it to the attending. When attending, you go in, you are there only for a few minutes in the patient's room for a quick exam. So our exposure time to any patient is less as compared to the nurses or as compared to the residents, because they are training. So they are much more liable to pick up, to catch disease. So when this had happened, that 3 of those patients turned out to be positive later on, so they had to make sure that they quarantine these, because you don't want to have one physician then giving it to others. So, and that was challenging, for him, having a young newborn at home, and then twice he had to quarantine at home. He just and then 3rd time he had to be in our basement. So that was then a different experience. We had to kind of just hand him his dinner tray and everything, open the door, and he would just pick it up, and it's like, was very different. So we'll just put it in, and he will just, finish it and leave it near the door. We'll pick it up and try to minimize our contact with him.
And it's really tempting to be like, okay, he's not sick, he's fine, there's no symptoms. Oh, it should be okay, But we really have to be like, no, that's not what we're going to do. We are going to follow the precautions. We're going to do it properly. But it gets hard with family.
And I imagine your basement is furnished and has like facilities. I can't imagine quarantining anyone in my basement.
It's a fully finished.
But no kitchen. So but what had happened was that our basement is has a patio view on the outside. There's a deck, but it isn't really a walkout kind of a thing. There's nothing, so we have to it's a sliding door. You can only lock it from inside. But he had to go at nighttime when he's on call, and he has to come back, early in the morning, different times.
So he's in quarantine, but he's still working at the hospital?
So what happened was that the first 2 times he had to be quarantined, he stayed home, didn't go to work. Third time, because it's so taxing, because there are only so many people, they can't just let everybody go. And he was taking night call, and night call, you have only 3 people. So if he doesn't go, it's going to be too much work for others to do, and they just could not. And this was the 3rd time, and I think they had experience from April, May, and now this was up, coming into June. They decided that he would still continue. He was quarantined from the family. He was still going to work and trying to minimize his contact with everybody else, whatever. So he had to maintain the mask and everything and still see patients. That is, I think I was also amazed, but this is what the department decided now, that they will have to come to work with whatever maximum precaution. But at least from family, yes, it was total quarantine. So that, so he had to do what he had to do. So we had to kind of come up with a plan how so we had to kind of drill something and make a little makeshift lock so he can lock it from the outside and go to work. And then come back in the basement. So this way, so that was interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you guys would like to add or talk about how COVID has impacted your life, either personally, professionally, your extended family?
Well, of course, travel is impossible, especially international travel right now. So we were planning to actually go, my parents live in Pakistan, so we were planning to go visit this August, and so we had to cancel that. So that was very disappointing. I try to visit them, they're aged. I try to visit them. We try to visit them at least once a year. So that was a real negative thing that happened this time. So traveling even within the country seems hard, visiting relatives in, say, Maryland or something. We feel like we can't go and stay at a hotel because it doesn't seem safe to stay at a hotel. So any trips we make, they have to be one day, go within that same day, we have to come back. And so, of course, that means a lot of the time we won't make the trip, or if we have to, it's just very taxing. So that's another negative thing about it.
And I think the fear, especially being far away from the family, especially her parents, they're elderly, and so there's always a fear, God forbid, if something happens, if they get sick, it's going to be very difficult, being so far away and not be able to, go and see and, take care of them. So those are the issues. And that's why she was, especially very dejected when, we couldn't go and we had to cancel.
And then I also have to think about, what if I travel and take the disease to them because I traveled, so don't want to do that. So it's between a rock and a hard place.
So how have you been staying in touch with them?
Zoom,
FaceTime
and Skype. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else to add? They're doing okay?
They're doing good.
Yeah, thank you.
That's good. Anything else to add that you want to talk about, either of you?
I
Can't think of
that's-
anything else.
Okay, well, thank you both again for speaking with me.
Sure.
Sure.
Thank you.